Absolutely crime. The single biggest problem facing the city of Stockton is crime. And I think it shows in the results from the primary in that my opponent spent all 6 months talking about bankruptcy and bankruptcy and bankruptcy. We're on the doorstep talking about bankruptcy, but also talking about crime and joblessness and linking those two together. And in doing so, we won the primary by 14 points. And then we've been doing town halls in every district, from Brookside to Southside, as I like to say now. Crime is an issue. I was just walking in the UOP area. Crime, there was a homicide 2 weeks ago. So throughout the city, even in the gated communities, crime's a big issue. So in doing so, I've been researching the best practices of other cities. I've been sitting with Police Chief Jones and helping them implement this ceasefire model. I've worked with PACT and getting new pastors and congregations involved in their night walks. So I'm excited after November 6th to have more time to do more work and address the issue of crime instead of spending time having to knock on doors and campaign. Well, I think a lot of it's what I've already been doing in response to 3 homicides in Western Ranch in June. In my opponent's neighborhood, it was myself that got together community members, got together law enforcement, got together nonprofits, got together 90 community members to come to the park where the 23-year-old young man was horrifically murdered, and had a community event where the elected officials heard from community heard from elected officials, but we also brainstormed as to what are we going to do to fight crime in this community. And out of that came a neighborhood watch in that community. Out of that came a revitalization of the Western Ranch Rock, which was this organizing group back in '08 that had become defunct. But because of that meeting, they're now back and doing work and organizing the neighborhood. And out of that came more participation with PAC's night outreaches. And that's something I want to expand citywide. Additionally, I've already been meeting with Chief Jones about implementing the ceasefire model. And what ceasefire is, it's bringing all the stakeholders to the table and understanding that crime is just not a police issue. Crime is not just something that law enforcement has to deal with. Crime is a function of breakdowns in families, neighborhoods, institutions like schools, and churches. So how do we bring all these people to the table, stop siloing our approaches to crime, and figure out how do we as a city fight crime? There was just an article in the Chronicle that talked about how despite other cities, San Francisco facing similar budget, not to the same extent, but similar budget difficulties, violent crime is down in San Francisco because they've implemented this model, because they brought all stakeholders to the table and they figured out how do we as a community, from law enforcement to the community, fight crime. So that's something I've been doing. I've been working with Chief Jones on doing, and will continue to work if or if not elected, but hopefully if elected. That's an excellent question. I think there's a lot to be done in spurring entrepreneurship within Stockton and talking to small business owners throughout the city, but especially in my district, District 6. It seems to be a really arduous process to open a business in Stockton. You have to go down to City Hall, pay the meter, go get paperwork, and sometimes you don't get all your paperwork, then you have to come back, and then there's no one to help you fill out the paperwork. So you have to come back and get help for the paperwork. But I also think the jobs issue is a lot more complex than people make it. The Brookings Institute just released a report that said our metro area was 94th out of the top 100 metro areas in job preparedness. So the argument they were making is that there are jobs out there, but because of the low literacy rates and low educational attainment of our populace, they're not able to apply for those jobs or get those jobs because they require a college degree. So my plan to bring jobs is absolutely using things like enterprise zones, absolutely using things like incentives to bring businesses here. But you're not going to bring jobs here if you have 55 homicides. What corporation is going to open headquarters in Stockton when their employees are scared for their lives? So we have to cut crime back to point one, but we also have to make sure our population is educated. I've been working with SUSD to figure out how do we bring vocational education back, so students, if they don't want to go to college, at least they want to trade. I've been working with the unions to figure out how do we publicize their apprenticeship programs they already have. So the job issue, like most issues in Stockton, is very multifaceted, but I think in the short term, utilizing enterprise zones, tax incentives, fighting crime, but then making sure our population is educated. I think the Health Careers Academy is a great example of that. We realized we're opening a VA hospital. We realized that's going to mean a lot of jobs. So we realized, like, hey, we need to educate people so when they graduate, they can take those jobs. So bringing approaches like that to the table, I think, will prepare our population for the jobs that are already out there, and then fighting crime will bring more jobs in.